A Freilach and Hanukkah. So exciting. Let me get really comfortable here. I've been debating all day whether to tell a joke before starting. Olivia's saying no, because it's a Y.Y. Jacobson joke, and I know she's not. Put your fingers in your ears. I'm going to tell it. Listen, because Rabbi would always tell a joke, and no one wanted to be late to his class because no one else really knew how to tell a joke so well. You really didn't get the joke given over if you were late. So I don't know so much about this, but okay, here's the weird joke. Okay, Marvin never went on vacation because he didn't want to leave his cat. You know this joke? I'm already laughing wildly. He never went on vacation. He never left his cat. And finally his brother convinced, he just lived with his mother and his cat. And his brother convinces him that he has to go on a vacation. He has to go. So finally he agrees to go on a 2-week vacation. He goes, and then a few days later he calls up his brother to find out. He asks him, how's the cat? And his brother told him the cat fell off the roof and died. And he's very upset, and he said, how can you tell it to me like that? That's not how you break bad news to someone. If you're going to break bad news to someone, you have to say it slowly. You should have said, the cat went upstairs, the cat walked over to the window, the cat sat on the window ledge, the cat walked out on the roof, the cat went to the edge of the roof, and then you say the cat fell off the roof and died. You have to break bad news to someone slowly. Okay, brother said, okay. And then Marvin said, and how's mom? His brother said, mom went upstairs. I told you it was a horrible joke. If I hadn't heard it from Y.Y. Jacobson, you would never catch me telling such a joke. All right, now that we've gotten that over with, here we go. Now we're getting to the serious part. Okay, so I want to share a class that I heard this week from Effie Ehrenberg, Torah HaNefesh, just a few key points. So we know that Hanukkah is the final holiday that we have. Chronologically, it's the final holiday. Purim was between the first and second Beit Midrash. Well, Hanukkah took place in the middle of the second Beit Midrash, and Purim is also part of the 24 books of Tanakh, Megillah Esther. But Hanukkah took place after that, so it's our final holiday. It's from the Kesser mitzvahs, the last 7 mitzvahs of the sages. Now, in Sefer Yetzirah, every month has the first book of Kabbalah said to be written by Adam Harishon, or at least Avram Avinu. And every month has a chush, a sense. And the chush for Kislev is chalima, cholam, dreaming. How to sleep and dream, how to rectify, how to tikkun our sleeping and our dreaming. So we get efficient sleep, high quality sleep, that we can sleep well and sleep less. The Rebbe didn't need much sleep, so we can we can get high quality sleep and need less sleep and high quality dreams. So the dreams in Torah, most of them take place in Kislev. There's 4 parshas that speak about dreams. They're mostly in Kislev. So last week we had Vayeshev, Yosef dreams, his own dreams. The stars and the wheat, we have Paro's dreams, Yaakov dreams, even Lavan has a dream. And today it's prophetic dreaming is rare today. So there's 3 levels of dreams. One is when a dream is nevuah, like Yosef's dreams were actual nevuah. Then there's a second level where a dream alludes to nevuah. And the third level is just like nonsense illusions that come up in dreams. So Joseph's dream was also kapashuto, the wheat. I never understood how the wheat really played a part, because his brothers would come for food. The wheat was really part of the dream itself. It's not just the bowing down, but the actual wheat. And then we have Paro's dreams in this week's parsha. And the Rebbe asks, everyone is impressed by Yosef's interpretation, but it's very simple. Paro's wizards, who also gave interpretations, said he would conquer 7 lands, lose 7 lands, but Paro's not happy with their interpretations. All the other interpretations of Paro were alluding, they were hints. Paro wasn't satisfied. Yosef gave a very simple explanation. Fat cows and thin cows stood at the Nile simultaneously. That's kind of the key word. Yosef's brilliance was within his interpretation. He put the solution. The solution of the dreams was also in its interpretation, that famine and sustenance would exist simultaneously. That's what he took from the thin cows and the fat cows standing next to each other at the same time. So Yosef's dreams integrated the time span. The wizard's interpretations didn't do that. And the dream anticipated Paro's free will and his choices. So every dream in Torah is exactly what will happen. But now our dreams are mainly subconscious thoughts that arise. But they say if we concentrate on our Torah, if we put yagi, if we put effort into our Torah, then our dreams will be Chedushei Torah. We'll have new insights in Torah. It's a natural phenomenon. So I want to make a l'chaim and bless everybody that in our dreams we should have Chedushei. We should put effort in our Torah, and our dream should be Chedushei Torah. L'chaim. Why not, right? Okay. So we've lost our ability to have nevuah in our dreams, and Kislev is the time to rehabilitate our ability to dream. And then there's this idea that in Hasidus, there's this concept of etzem, essence, and the concept of revelation. The etzem is never revealed. The etzem is represented by oil in Kislev. The tamtzi, the essence of the olive, is the oil. Soul juice, like when you squeeze it. So you squeeze the olive, you get out oil. We have the schus in the last 8 years to pick olives from the olive trees that my husband planted when we got our land in Bat Ayin 21 years ago. It's very exciting. It's pour the oil into the little glass cups. Like I knew that oil when it was an olive. It's very exciting. It's very thrilling. I really want to bless everyone with a chance to grow their own olives in Eretz Yisrael and make oil, l'chaim. Okay, so the etzem, so Hasidus is the etzem. Hasidus connects us with the etzem. I want to speak, Rabbi Effie also spoke a little bit about the Beinani, and I got an insight that I never understood before that I want to share with you, my dear friends. So we spoke last week, Yutes Kislev, about the Beinani, the Alter Rebbe's revolutionary concept of the Beinani, that he wants us to see ourselves as a Beinani, as the middle. It's the true center, but it doesn't compromise the edges. This is what I want to explain. The Beinani is capable of integrating the edges of his personality and expanding them. So the etzem the Beinani is connected with the etzem that can bear a paradox. The balance of the Beinani is not balancing out the edges. Like sometimes, God forbid, a person could be manic depressive. They're very high or they're very low, and they're given a drug, a psychiatric drug to kind of hammer out the edges. But this is not what we're talking about. The Beinani is able to bear the edges because of his strong center. I mean, there's a place where a psychiatric drug can save someone's life, but long term, it's kind of like a gray existence. It's better to learn how to bear the paradox of the edges. The balance is not ironing out the edges. In the very early mimer of the Rebbe, on the essence of Hasidus, the Rebbe showed how the Hasidus is the etzem of all levels of Pardes. That the Hasidus, it's really a highly recommended mimer of the Rebbe on the essence of Hasidus, to show it's the essence of all levels of Torah, and it brings them to life. It brings new life to all the levels of Torah. So which brings us back to dreams. So dreams can contain a paradox, like the story that's always given is an elephant can go through a needle hole in a dream. So this is infinity dwelling in finitude. Hasidus comes to rehabilitate infinity dwelling in finitude. This is what it means to bear a paradox. So the true hush of dreaming of this month is the paradox of infinity dwelling in finitude. It's a paradox. The Beinoni I can contain all of my edges. If we can't contain our edges, our aspirations deteriorate to gray. It's like psychic entropy. We need the Beinoni. Hasidus rehabilitates our dreams, the balance of the Beinoni. He said a very interesting idea. Assimilation comes from uninspired Yiddishkeit. I guess that's obvious, right? That assimilation comes from uninspired Yiddishkeit. And there's a delusion that Goyishkeit is richer. Why else, God forbid, would someone leave Yiddishkeit, but they think Goyishkeit is richer? So this is uninspired. So God forbid, we want to have inspired Yiddishkeit. I want to bless everybody. We should all have inspired Yiddishkeit. L'chaim. L'chaim. So to be re-inspired, the ness of Hanukkah, the miracles of Hanukkah, we'll speak more about it, should rehabilitate us. It should inspire us. The Rebbe dreamt as a child, Oda Hashem ki anaftabi. It's a quote from Isaiah, Yeshayahu. I will thank you, Hashem, because you were angry at me. And the Rebbe, this contains all the paradox. And the Rebbe had an image, and he's a child in Cheder, what that meant, like the point of Mashiach, where we'll be able to thank Hashem for all the suffering in our personal life, for everything that happened in all of Jewish history, that we'll be able to see it as Hashem's kindness. So it's all the paradoxes being revealed. And the Rebbe saw this as a child under the Tsar and under communist Russia. The Rebbe held this image of the coming of Mashiach when we could say, Oda Hashem ki anaftabi. Yes. So the Baal Shem Tov, his name was Yisroel, and he came to awaken a fainted body, the fainted body of the Jewish people, squeezing out the point of oil. So we know a name is connected with the Etzem, and his name was Yisroel. He came to wake up the sleeping Jews, inspired Yiddishkeit, to give us inspired Yiddishkeit, filled with simcha. L'chaim, l'chaim. So we all need rehabilitation. We're all post-traumatic. If we're not post-traumatic from our own lives, which is very rare, then we can be from the Arizal says we're all Gilgulim. So if we weren't traumatized, I'm laughing and crying at the same time, as everyone who knows me well knows, right? But if we weren't traumatized enough in our own lifetime, well, there's all those past lifetimes of living through the trauma of the Jewish people. So we all need a little rehabilitation, right? We all could use a little rehabilitation. Yes. So stretching our aspirations, expanding our edges, this is part of our rehabilitation. To reignite the etzem, the ability to bear a paradox. This is Hanukkah. We're going to speak about this, the Rebbe's take on the miracle of Hanukkah. You know, when in the 1920s, and when quantum physicists discovered that light itself was a paradox, that it was both a particle and a wave simultaneously, and there's no way the human brain can bear a paradox. It can't, like Seichel can't bear a paradox. It takes a munah to bear a paradox. And it drove those quantum physicists crazy. They couldn't believe that. And then they found electrons were the same thing, a wave and a particle, at the building blocks of reality, or a paradox that the human brain can't bear. An unbearable existence, reality is an unbearable paradox. Without a munah, it's impossible to bear. And this is built into the miracle of Hanukkah. We'll speak about it soon. So the Rebbe gave a koch, an enthusiasm, that Hanukkah is a special time for Mifsoyim, to re-expand our personality. I want to share with you an experience I had with Mifsoyim last Hanukkah. And you can see the end when the Rebbe tells us that, Mifsoyim is where the energy is. It means, want to feel better? Reach out to another Jew. Here's a true story that happened to me. I called my first cousin once removed, Valerie, on the seventh day of Hanukkah. That night was Zos Hanukkah, and she had never lit a menorah. You can see I was a little slow on my Mifsoyim. And I was telling her about it, and she had seen it once or twice as a child. And I was telling her about it, and she was getting more enthusiastic. I asked her if she had any candles in the house, and she had 5 long candles, and she got them. And she cut 4 of them in half, so now she had 8 small candles and 1 long candle. And then I told her she could make a menorah out of aluminum foil, and before my very eyes, she actually got aluminum foil, made a menorah, stuck in the candles, and she sent me pictures that night of when she lit them, because it's in New York, it's, a different time. And I actually went into ecstasy. I never was 100% right. Do you want to enjoy life? Get another Jew to light a Hanukkah menorah. It's just, there's still time. We have a whole 4 more lightings to go if you want to up the vibe. So Baruch Hashem, I could say and this year they had Chabad advertised for $9.99, including shipping. They'll send them a little menorah and a box of candles to anyone. And I sent it to Valerie before Hanukkah, and she was so touched. She said she was going to send a package to her sister so they could light together. So mitzvah gerereth mitzvah. Okay. So igniting the spark for ourselves, for Mashiach, for the nation. Hanukkah is a time we have to be re-inspired. Instead of deterioration and compromising our edges and reaching the gray middle of assimilation, Hanukkah is a time for us to turn it around. We need a critical mass of the Jewish people to change their mentality that we're waiting for Mashiach, that the sense of dreaming for Mashiach, contain the paradox. Yosef is known as Porat Yosef, and the word Porat hints at sewing together the edges of a paradox. And through Chassidus and Mesiras Nefesh, we should be Yotzi the Geula Shalema, L'chaim. Now I want to share with you the Rebbe's take on the miracle of Hanukkah, which I found very inspiring. Okay, deep breath. Here we go. Okay, so everyone knows the story that miraculously someone thought, let's dig a hole in the ground in the area of the Beit Midrash. Let's dig a hole, and they found a cruse of oil, a little jar of oil with the seal of the Kohen Gadol, and it was enough oil for 1 day, and it was a miracle. The oil lasted for 8 days. So there's a book of what was the miracle? Why do we celebrate 8 days? Why don't we just celebrate 7 days? What actually was the miracle? What did they do? There's over 100 different answers, but the Rebbe showed how they really boil down to 3 major answers. And each of these answers has a flaw, a halachic flaw. The Rebbe shows what the flaw is, what the problem is, and the Rebbe gives it a totally new and exciting answer. So I hope everyone's sitting at the edge of their seat now to find out what. Okay, let me tell you, that's good. I saw someone just move to the edge of their seat. That's the attitude. Okay, so was the miracle of Hanukkah here's 3 choices. Was it like the miracle of the widow and Elisha, where he told her to gather vessels, and as many vessels as she gathered, when she started to pour the oil, there was a miracle in the quantity of the oil, and all the vessels she had became filled with oil. So that's a mitzvah in the quantity of the oil. Everyone understands that, the quantity of the oil. Or another category, was it a mitzvah like Sarah Imenu had, where it was a mitzvah in the quality of the oil? She put in her oil Erev Shabbos, and it lasted all week. There was something about the quality of the oil where it could last a whole week. The miracle was in the quality of the oil. A third choice was the sneh. The sneh was not consumed. It was burning, but not consumed. So that's an interesting miracle. So what's the problem with these three choices? The Rebbe points out what's wrong halachically with these three choices. Let's say it's a mitzvah in the quantity of oil. They started with 1 day's worth of olive oil, and then oil miraculously came min hashemayim. So they didn't run out. There was enough oil for all days. Oil min hashemayim. Well, halakhically, you have to use oil from olive trees. If it isn't olive tree oil, it's not kosher for the menorah. You cannot use oil min hashemayim. Okay. What if it's oil? What if it's the quality of the oil? Let's say they just put in 1/8 each night and it lasted all night. Or they put in the whole thing and it burned down 1/8 each night. Why couldn't that be the miracle? Well, that's a problem, but tonight it has to go up to a certain line in the cups of the menorah. So if you put it in 1/8, even if it lasts all night, it's not up to the line halachically. What if it's the oil was not consumed, like the sneh? Nope, the flame has to come from the burning of the oil. Okay, so that now we're up to Kiddush from the Rebbe, which really applies to our lives. What was the Kiddush of the miracle of Hanukkah? Was that in each moment, the oil both burned and not burned simultaneously. It was consumed and not consumed each moment. So it was a paradox. It's a paradox. And it's a miracle. And that makes the miracle. Every second of Hanukkah was a miracle. It was a miracle for 8 days because every moment it was burning and not burning. Like light is a wave and a particle, each moment at the same time. The light was burning and not burning. I heard this sikha being given over by Y.Y. Jacobson, that famous joker. And he said about it, which I thought was very interesting. He said there's people that saw a miracle. They saw a miracle in their life, but they hardly think about it. They hardly remember it. And then there's people that a miracle happened to them, and they do remember it. They remember it from time to time that a miracle happened to them. And then there's people who at every moment is a miracle. He gave an example of a shliach that's $20 million in debt, but every school, every moslid, every institution, every Chabad house, they're all running. It's a miracle. There's no way to explain it. He's $20 million in debt, and everything is functioning. So there's a way in our life we can see this is the bracha of Hanukkah. We have to be re-inspired to see every moment of our life as a miracle, right? L'chaim, l'chaim. Yeah, so somebody raising their hand there. Are you raising your hand, Olivia, or are you waving at me? Oh, you're not, are you able to unmute? Do we have our Elazar has to be as the official unmuter. Are you there, Elazar?
Yes, I hear.
Oh, so Olivia Schwartz is trying to share some question. Can you unmute?
Schwartz?
Yeah, she's right on my screen. She's just on the other side of you.
All right, in here.
Okay, you're going to unmute her. Try Olivia now. No, I still can't hear you. She's still muted.
Yes, you can.
Oh, you have to unmute yourself, Olivia. Try to unmute yourself. You know that little button on the left? Oh, she's looking frustrated. She's still muted. Elazar, what can she do?
1 second.
I hope you're not driving.
You have to press the microphone, Olivia.
On the bottom left, where there's a little microphone, where it says mute,
Yes.
unmute.
Yes.
Yes, do you see it, Olivia? Oh, well. We'll have to practice when it's not the class going on. We'll have a little practice session this week.
Hit a small button. Button.
Okay, I know everyone is really feeling bad because we have to go on with the class. All right, we tried. Okay, so now I have something else to share while we're waiting. A story, a very interesting story about Hanukkah from the Chelek Bas Ayin. So the Bas Ayin, Rabbi Avram Dov from Avrich, made Aliyah in 1830 to Tzfat. He was 65 years old, and he waited to publish his Sefer Bas Ayin until he reached Eretz Yisrael. He said he wanted it to be exposed to the air of Eretz Yisrael. And this is the first book of Hasidus published in Eretz Yisrael. The other books of Hasidus were published in Europe, abroad. They were brought here, but Bas Ayin is the first book. He's buried in Tzfat. Everyone is welcome to visit his holy grave, the Chelek Bas Ayin. So let me share with you what he has to say about Hanukkah. So first he tells the story from last week's Parsha of Yehuda and Tamar. We know the story. Yehuda says about Tamar, take her out to be burnt. The wise Tamar asks for collateral from Yehuda before engaging in relation. She asked, Chatamcha, your seal, upsilcha, your cord, umatcha, your staff. And we know Tamar sends these three objects to Yehuda and says, recognize, please, who is the owner of these three items. I am pregnant with his child. And Yehuda says, Tzatka mimeni. She's right, it's from me. I'm guilty that I didn't allow her to marry Shelah, my son. And we know Yehuda saying, mimeni, it's from me that Mashiach comes from him. Because he didn't have to say, she could have said Tzatka, she's right. And he knew Pilpul, he could say, I remember Akiva Eger said that she really doesn't have to be burned at the stake. But he said mimeni. That's what gets, he was willing to take responsibility. And we know Tamar gives birth to Peretz and Zorach, and Peretz is the Zaidi of David HaMelech and Mashiach. So now I want to share with you a Hasidic twist on the story from the Chelek Bas Ayin. By the way, Bat Ayin was named, the community where I live was named after him. One of the first settlers in Bat Ayin suggested that as a name. And it also means the daughter of the wellspring, and there are three well springs nearby. So it has a double meaning. Okay, the Hasidic twist on the story. So, Hanukkah. So the story happens at the end of almost 3 months, it says in Chumash. So almost 3 months from Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, every Jew gets inspired, burning with passion for Hashem. The shuls are filled, the synagogues are filled. And we know that Yehuda represents Hashem. Yehuda actually has Yud Kei Vav Kei in his name. Hashem's name is in his name. And the letter Daled, which many people, we use as a symbol when you're taking notes. Hashem, you make a Daled and a slash. So Yehuda represents Hashem. Tamar is the Jewish people. And the Hashinas on Sukkot, the third day of Sukkot, we say Damta L'Tamar. The Jews may be in exile. She is compared to a palm tree. Damta L'Tamar. So Tamar, and also in Tehillim it says Sadik Tamar Yifrach. Sadik blooms like a tamar, like a palm tree, blossoms like a palm tree. So Tamar represents the Jewish people in this metaphor. So now almost 3 months have passed. So Kislev is not quite finished. And Satan, the Midah Hadin, the Midah of punishment, of Gevurah, of judgment, comes to Yehuda, comes to Hashem, and says, your Kala has engaged in znus, in immorality. 3 months ago in Shul, she was saying Hamelech, and now she's back in the world. She forgot about you. She became pregnant from znus, from immorality. Okay, So it says, Vayika mishlosh chadashim vayagud Yehuda. It was the end of 3 months, and they almost 3 months, and they told to Yehuda, Lemor Zanta Tamar Kalasecha. Your daughter-in-law Tamar has engaged in immorality, Begam hine chara liz nunim, and she's become pregnant from znus. Vayomer Yehuda hotziuha v'tisarev, take her out to be burned. Okay, so we make mistakes. We know the human condition, we make mistakes. People even can make a philosophy of mistakes. Tamar is entrenched in an immoral union. She has abandoned you, Sutton says. She has lost her integrity. Yehuda tells the Sutton, take her out to be burned. She's squandering every moment in this world. It's the 25th of Kislev. She's being taken out. It says, he mutzat v'hi, she's being taken out, v'hi sholcha el chamaha, and she sends to her father-in-law Lamor, saying, the Isha she'elulo, the person to who these belong, anochi chara, I'm pregnant from him. V'tomer hakarnar lemi, please look, lemi hachosemet v'hapsilim v'hamata ha'elu. Who do they belong to? This seal and this cord and this staff. Vayakar Yehuda, and Yehuda recognizes them. Vayomer sadka mimeni. And he says, you're right, ki al kain lo nasatiho l'shela bani, because I didn't give her to Shela, my son. So I'm pregnant from the owner of these, she says. And look, so it's this, look at this, it's the seal, the wick, and the staff. And she's pointing to the flames of the menorah. If you have a menorah in your room, take a look at it. Who owns this seal? The Chotemet. This is the seal of the Kohen Gadol. The Gemara Shabbos, page 21, says Hanukkah. The Syrian Greeks contaminated the oils. The Hashmonaim found Pach Echad Shel Shemen, one little jar of oil, sealed with the seal of the Kohen Gadol. It burned for 8 days. Look at the oil in my menorah. It represents the seal of the Kohen Gadol. The Basilim, of course, are the wicks of the menorah. And what about the mata? What about the staff? The mata, the Rabbanu Shel Olam, look at my wandering staff from country to country for thousands of years. It's unbelievable. 2,000 years of exile, and we're still lighting the menorah. Look, Rabbanu Shel Olam, look, we haven't forgotten you. Yeah. And why have we been wandering? The Isha she'elalo, because of the man who these belong to, because of you. We've been wandering because of you. Look at the menorah, see where our loyalty belongs. So the pure oil is somewhere hidden in the subconscious of every Jew. Looking at them, and they're looking at their menorah with love. They're clinging to their wandering stick, only not to betray you, Hashem. So a Jew is essentially loyal in the deepest place in his soul. Every Jew is loyal to Hashem. Dig in a Jew, and Rabbanu Shel Olam, you'll find dveikus with Rabbanu Shel Olam. Vayakir Yehuda. So Yehuda looks at the menorah, Hashem looks at the menorah and recognizes the truth. Tzadka, she's right, mimeni. It was me, it's my fault. Hashem says, I am guilty. He says to Sutton, I'm guilty. Ki al kain lo nasatiho l'Shela bani, because I didn't give her to Shela, my son. Who is Shela? Rashi, Parshas Vayechi. Yaakov blesses Yehuda and says, Lo yisor shevet me Yehuda umachokek mi ben raglav ad ki yavo Shilo. They will not depart, the stick of authority will not depart from Yehuda, nor scholars from his feet until the coming of Shiloh. Who is Shiloh? Rashi says Melech HaMashiach. So Hashem says, I am guilty. I haven't given her to Shela, my son. For 2,000 years, we've been waiting for redemption, Hashem says, and I haven't brought Mashiach. 2,000 years. Can you expect in 2,000 years of such a dark gullus that a Jew shouldn't make a mistake? And all of Tamar's friends were saying to, why are you clinging to a fantasy that one day you'll marry Shela? Why are you clinging to a fantasy that someday Mashiach will come? But Tamar feels with every fiber of her being that she belongs to this family and that great things will come out of her connection with this family. And this is the story of the Jewish people. Every day we wait for Mashiach. People are scoffing. How can you have such a fantasy that you'll wait for Mashiach? And Tamar holds on to her belief that because Tamar's friends say to her, why don't you ask for Chalitza? She's connected in Yibum. She's connected with Shayla, with the family in Yibum. Before Matan Torah, Yibum could be with, and it doesn't have to be with a brother-in-law. It could be with any close relative. Why don't you just ask? But she felt she had this connection, that it was going to work out, that Mashiach was going, and Mashiach does come from the union of Tamar and Yehuda. So every day we wait for Mashiach, people are scoffing. What Jews have said, Ani Mamim, all over the world. People said Yehuda was never going to give you Shelah, but Tamar did the courageous thing. And Yehuda says, she's right. I didn't give her Mashiach. And out of this birth comes Peretz, and from Peretz comes David, and from David comes Mashiach. And this is how Chassidus looks at a Jew. This is, I mean, it's really mind-blowing. Chassidus opens the light to see what is a Jew. What is a Jew? That we've been loyal for so long, that we've been waiting for Mashiach so long with everything that we've been through. And Hashem says, yes, she's right. We're right. That Hashem says, I'm guilty. This is how Chassidus sees a Jew, that he didn't bring Mashiach. So Chassidus opens the light to see what a Jew is, an internal bride, a loyal partner to Hashem. Yay. So that's from the Chelek Abbas Ayin. I'm so glad I had a chance to share that. And we still have a few more minutes. L'chaim, l'chaim. 49 people. We have a great group tonight. You know, tomorrow night is the 5th night of Hanukkah. It was a custom of the Rebbes to make, they called a Latka Oven, to have a Latka evening, to have family and friends over and tell stories of Hanukkah. The 5th night was always considered a night for Hasidic Verbringens. The 5th night is the only night of Hanukkah that can never fall on Shabbos. So there's a certain something that needs to be elevated, that can be elevated to a very high place. So we're going to have a party, right? Leah Schloss, I've invited you to my party. Don't forget to come. Personal invitation. Okay, just a little something about tomorrow night. Okay, so a few more things I'd like to share in my last few minutes. Okay, so, So Yosef could navigate paradoxes we spoke about. His brothers didn't understand him. They said to him, you're the closest thing to Yiddishkeit. They didn't think you could live like Yosef lived. They didn't understand someone could wear a colorful shirt and be frum. The brothers just couldn't grasp that you could wear a colorful shirt and be frum. They were a little klein keppeldik, a little narrow-minded in that you really can wear a colorful shirt and be frum. That was Yosef. But Yosef didn't stop loving them. I think that's an important idea. But he just wanted them to do tshuva. He wasn't trying to punish them as the story progresses. There's one more story that I must share with you while it's still Hanukkah about Yehuda. Okay, so chapter 38 in Chumash, in Bereshis, is the story of Yehuda and Tamar. Right before that, chapter 37 ends with Yosef being sold into slavery, and chapter 39 begins with the continuation of Yosef being in Mitzrayim. Let's say chapter 38 was missing. Would you have said, while doing your Chumash Hitas, would you have said, something is missing here, something is missing here? Well, I'll tell you what would be missing. It's a very exciting thought. What would be missing is the change in character in Yehuda. Because Yehuda before, at the end, chapter 37, Yehuda is saying, let's throw our brother into a pit. Let's have lunch. No, let's sell him into slavery. There we go. Look, there's some merchants. we'll sell our, it's more profitable to sell him into slavery than to just murder him in the pit. So he sells his brother into slavery. They say that whimsically, you could say when Yehuda was in Heder, he learned you're not allowed to kill your brother, but he was absent on the day when they learned you're not allowed to sell your brother into slavery. He missed that lesson. That's what happens when you miss a day of Heder. You don't know these important ideas. So yes, so that's how we leave Yehuda before his encounter with Tamar. So what happens? He has this encounter with Tamar, and after that, next thing he's telling Yosef, disguised as Paro's assistant, take me as your slave. Let my brother go back to my father. I'm a better slave. I'll be a better slave. Let me. So where is this change? How did he have this change? It was because of Tamar. Everybody needs a Rebbe, and for Yehuda, his Rebbe was Tamar. Through his encounter with Tamar, it totally changed his life. Isn't that a great story? I love that story. Yes, you just never know where you might have an encounter with a Rebbe. Okay, so Yosef, just to finish off, Yosef felt that everyone should be happy. Everyone should be besimcha. He had a very Hasidic attitude, like the Alter Rebbe. The first thing the Alter Rebbe thinks about, are you in a bad mood? Nope, won't work. You have to be, let's look at it. So Yosef felt the same way. You have to be happy. He sees two depressed prisoners in the pit, and he says, why are you depressed? I mean, this was not the lobby of the Hilton. He's asking them, well, this was, but he felt wherever you are, you had to be besimcha. Yosef asks them, why are you depressed? And the world is saved. He saves the world from famine. So when we meet someone, we have to ask them how they're doing. We need to be warm to people. We have to be warm and friendly. It's always that extra hug, the corona. Breathe the other way while hugging your best friends. Everyone breathe in the other direction. Be warm. Okay, so I want to end with a story. Oh, a quick two stories. I still have 2.5 minutes. Yes, quick, 2 1-minute stories. So you might have heard the Chabad Haneros Hallelu. You might sing it. It's very dramatic. It's beautiful. It's a bit long. And I never knew till today the story behind it. I heard a lovely woman playing it on the cello, and she gave an introduction. I forgot her name. She said that it comes from the time of the Rebbe Maharash, the 4th Lubavitch Rebbe, and he wasn't feeling well, and his Hasidim were really missing him and wanted to see him more, and they knew that he came out for the Hanukkah lighting. So they figured if they would see him longer, if they did a very long Haneros Hallelu, very long and dramatic, so just for a couple of more minutes of seeing their Rebbe, they composed this beautiful niggin. So we benefited from today, but isn't that an touching what Hasidim will do to see their Rebbe? Right. Okay, one more now. I have 1 more minute for the last story. So the Rebbe Rashab took the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, his son, on a walk when he was a child, and he told him the greatness of learning Hasidus. That Hasidus illuminates the soul, Hasidus transforms your life, but it's nothing compared to when someone is given a gift from heaven to have a geschmack to do a favor for another Jew. A geschmack is a Yiddish word. It means to find it delicious, to have a good taste, a delicious taste, to have a geschmack in doing a favor for another Jew. Because we do favors for other Jews, but to have a real taste for it, that it should just taste delicious to do a favor for another Jew. So I want to end by blessing us all. And we know that Hashem told Avram Avinu that everyone who blesses you is blessed. So we have to also increase in Hanukkah and our blessing each other. I want to bless everyone, that we should all have a geschmack in doing a favor for another Jew. L'chaim, l'chaim.